Ladies and gentlemen, that's not how I start. What's up, Tubes? Welcome to Low Guido's Chop Shop, the second best Gel Blaster channel on the tubes. And today we have got something that people have been asking for probably about as long as the P1 or something. It's one of those things that's been coming for a long time. And this is the 3DG G17. I'm just going to call it 3DG because that's what everyone else is calling it. This one has come from Tac Toys, and Tac Toys has been generous enough to offer all of my viewers 10% off when they buy the 3DG from Tac Toys, and you can do that by entering a code LOGUIDO, all one word. I'll put it down in the description. But it's worth noting that I think that code actually gets you 10% off everything, not just the 3DG. I don't know if that's a mistake they made, but take advantage while you can, save some money. Let's have a look in this box. So, packaging is quite nice. Oh, look at that. That looks pretty cool. You've got your standard sort of things in your safety goggles. I will note that usually I throw these things straight in the bin. I don't know if you can see with the black background, but these gogs actually don't look too bad. I might shoot them with something later on and see how they hold up. But for now, let's move on, see what else we've got in the back. Box. 420 milliamp hour 11.4 volt battery. Okay, that's it. That's interesting. I guess they mean 11.1, but that's a decent sized little battery. I noticed there's another one in there. Does this come with two, or have they just given me one for free because I'm Low Guido and they love me? Gold packet Milkies. I do love a good gold packet Milkies. USB charger. This is actually, to me, this is actually quite interesting. To everyone else, they probably don't care. But it's actually 11.1 volt charger from a 5 volt USB port, which I think is pretty cool. Usually you only get the lower voltages in USB type because of, voltages. Obviously this has got a magical step-up converter inside there. Let's get this thing out and see what it's like. I find it's easier to push these things out from underneath than it is to try and get them from on top. Pushing it out from underneath revealed why I have two batteries. Alright. Two batteries, two mags. Let's take a closer look at this thing. Now, it feels pretty nice out of the box. Like, weight-wise, it's got some warning label across it. Do not disassemble this toy without... Oh, man. Not allowed to disassemble it. Oh, well. Guess I'm going to void my warranty very shortly. Yeah, like, it's got a nice weight to it. When I saw these things, I wasn't really a huge fan of this mag, mainly because of this cutout and this spring feed thing, but I understand that because of space and configuration they need this cutout for where the motor sits in there. Either way, it's pretty nice nylon sort of construction. You bring that spring down and lock it back there, and then there is a door here which you fill the gels into. Now I was kind of expecting like a P1 style thing where it's actually got the spring pushing up and then like a feed lip which then would load the gel into the chamber, but that's not the case. It's not a feed lip type arrangement. It's got a spring, but it pushes out to a tube, and there's a T-piece in there. So that is Very interesting. I'm now interested to get this thing apart and have a look. But before we go there, we're going to have to load it up, I guess. Put some batteries in it for starters. The batteries actually live in the mag. And so you have a battery per mag. Again, this wasn't something that I was a huge... I wasn't super fond of it. Because it means that every time you buy a spare mag, you're going to need to get a battery as well. But having said that, when your alternative is, say, something like the P1, then every single mag is also a gas cylinder as well. So vice versa. Now the batteries do have this XT30 connector, which, you know, by all means is a very good connector. In terms of being able to pass a lot of current. It's, well, 30 amps, as the case would be. It is pretty good, but it's a little bit in the big side, because all this needs to fit under that. So, here we go. A lot of people, I'm not a huge fan of the XT30s. I mean, XT30s aren't too bad because they're small, but a lot of people go with XT60s and Deans and stuff, particularly on bigger blasters, and I can kind of understand bigger blasters, you got more space, but this is one of the reasons why a lot of the time I just like to stick with the JST SM connectors, just because they are so compact. Yeah, admittedly they have a much lower current rating, but I think for most part, oh, I got it in. All right, cool. I think for most part they're actually acceptable, but in this case it comes with XT30s, and that is what it will use. So it is a little bit of a struggle to get the battery in the mag, but hopefully don't have to do it that often. I guess it will probably have to come out to be charged, so that's probably a pain. That way. Maybe that'll give me a bit of clearance here. Oh yeah, that might work. Alright. Yeah, so if you have the balance lead towards the spring side, then you can sort of tuck the XT30 around the side section there. Tuck the balance lead in the front there. Let's see if that works for me. Yes, alright, so that works. That wasn't too much of an ordeal, but I'm sure a lot of people are going to have struggles with that one. I guess once you get used to it, you get used to it. Let's zoom in on this thing a bit, just so we can see some of the logos and stuff and the moldings. Alright, so you can see it's got nice moldings on it. Does remind me a bit of the P1. It seems to it looks like it's got a little bit more detail, I think, maybe than the P1. It certainly feels nice. Let's juice this up and put some shots through the chrono. It's probably worth noting my general angle of attack with all these blasters is that I just dive in. There is instructions. It's probably worth noting that there is instructions, and they do show you things like, you know, the battery cover installation and how to load the mag and all that sort of thing. So it's probably worthwhile paying attention there. Don't do what Donnie Don't does and dive straight into it like a me. Now I've got some regular old Milkies here. Why is there always one blue one in there? Why is there always like one random blue one anyway, I got some pretty average standard Milkies here. There's no fancy ultras or AKAs or anything, just standard Milkies, and I'm going to try loading them up into the 3DG. Now you can pull the spring down and lock it in there. There we go. Now I usually use these empty hand sanitizer bottles as speed loaders. They work quite well with most other mags, but probably not going to be ideal with this one. It's probably like worth using a proper speed loader with the narrow nozzle to get these down in there. Ironically, hand sanitizer is probably harder to get these days. Alright, you can see them down in there. Probably one of the first things everyone wants to do when they get one of these is to rack the slide, and I'm no exception. It does have a nice feel to it, not quite as satisfying as like a gas blowback, but I guess because this is battery operated. I'm going to put an empty mag in it just so I can see what happens. Ah, right. There you go. Look, slide back. That's kind of cool, and it's, again, as I said, it is a different feeling to a gas blowback. It's not the same feeling, but it is somewhat. It's somewhat similar. It's definitely not what I was expecting. Anyway, I'll say that. It's more of the slide winds itself back than a slide gets blown back kind of feeling that you get from gas. But either way, let's load up the one that's got gels in it, and we'll find some chrono results. Alright, here we are. Alright, interestingly enough, I'm going to compare this a lot to the P1 because I mean that's probably the closest thing that I've seen around to this sort of thing. So you don't have to rack it. It is battery operated. As soon as the mag's in, you're ready to go. You don't have to rack it to get that first round in the chamber like you do with the P1. 148. 144, 141, 151, and I'm locked back. Now, I think I only got like 7 shots out of that, and I did load quite a lot more than 7 gels into that. So let's get another mag ready and see what happens. Alright, new mag, as you can see there, filled up with gels. So I am getting quite a few breaking in the barrel, but I did literally take this out of the box and load it up. So generally with blasters you need to sort of wear them in, get a few down range before lube the barrel and all that sort of thing. Alright, looks like I'm out. Slide's locked back. Alright, new mag. Round 3. Alright, and then we'll lock back. So you may have noticed some anomalies there. There were some really high ones. That's evident, and there was some really low ones as well. That's evident of when a gel breaks in the when it breaks in the barrel or whatever. It does give a spurious reading, but we are looking at about 150, give or take. There's a few broken ones, so we got like a 300, 400. That's not realistic. 130, 150, 140, 140. So I'd say we're looking at about 150 FPS. Like I said, I had to put a couple mags through it before I was getting it consistently firing, but that's standard of all blasters when you first get them and they're brand new. Got to put a few through it to, break it in. So as with most blasters, there is going to be a break-in period, I guess. When you start using it, you got to get a few gels down the barrel before you start getting any sort of readings that are consistent. But I'll play around with this, and then I'll come back to it, and we'll see what's up with that. It was pushing about 150 when it was firing. There's something else I've noticed here. I don't know if you guys can see this in here. There's some electronics in there. Some sort of MOSFET or something, I guess. Some sort of electronic switching circuit. And it's fairly exposed in the back there. I mean, generally speaking, there's nothing in there on most Glocks. That piece is just empty. That's not a surprise. Like if you look at the P1, that's empty as well, but the P1 doesn't have electronics, so it's not so much of an issue. I guess something to take note of, you don't want to get any sort of dirt or contaminants up in there if you can avoid it, because there is electronics up in there. So I guess the next thing for me to do is to take it all apart, see how she ticks. Okay, so this switch here on the side is the safety. It's quite firm to push down there, so that locks the trigger. And as I said, it is quite firm, so no one's accidentally going to knock the safety off. The opposite side is apparently the slide release. So that is also quite firm, but apparently now that that's released, I should be able to take the slide off. Alright, cool. That's pretty straightforward. Alright, now we just need to knock this pin out of the back here. Alright, that actually comes out really easily. I was expecting it to give some sort of resistance. Most of those pins are actually quite a bit of a pain to get out. That one actually comes out quite easily. Now we flip it over. There is a Allen key, small, 1.5 I think, by the looks of it. Small Allen key. Yeah, you know what I mean. Grub screw. Alright, now that those grub screws are out, so that grub screw is out. Oh, look at that, it just slides up. How about that? Alright. That was easier than expected. There is a small piece there. Oh, that's the switch. Well, that's actually the switch. This one here, which is the safety switch. That's the slide catch. Alright, let's take a look at this. This is all quite interesting. So there's MOSFETs here. I might take a look at them closer in a moment. But the motor looks like a 370 motor. This little wheel here, I think originally was what was driving the slide. You can actually see, can you see? Down in here, there's like a tooth section just here that was, I think, the original drive system in the earlier model, and they eventually thought that was a bad idea. I got to agree with them, because when I saw that was the drive mechanism in the previous release version, I saw the cog driving the slide, I was like, yeah, that's not gonna last. So they've changed that, which is good. I find this interesting, that the slide catch is literally just sits there. Cool, alright, that works. I guess the next thing to do is just pull this apart. Kind of excited, kind of a little bit scared. I've never seen a blaster quite like this before. Yeah, alright, let's get into it. I suppose first thing I'm going to do is take the motor off. Get in here. Now it looks like these wires for the motor and the MOSFET down here are soldered into the mag terminals here. Have a look at the other side here. Switch. Oh yeah, so there's a micro switch there for the trigger, and that runs down to the FETs. The FET board down here is quite interesting. Looks like there's, I'm going to say they look like 30 amp FETs to me. There's no actual markings on them. They've taken all the markings off. I've taken these screws out of the motor cage to get the motor out, or to get it free at least. Looks like nylon pinion gear there. So the wires are kind of neatly packed in these little grooves, but there's just enough room for me to sort of slide it out of the way to get to the rest of the body. Before I take this apart, I think it's probably a good idea to get the spring out. Looks like it releases much like standard sort of quick release spring. There's the back of the plunger. Incidentally, that's what drives the slide now. That this gear doesn't drive the slide anymore, they've just driven it straight off the back of the plunger, which is a good idea. It's much more efficient. I think it would, I reckon it'd probably even be snappier on the plunger than it would have been on a gear drive. Gear drive, I never thought that was a good idea when I saw that was how they were doing it originally. Did not think that was a good idea. Now, I wonder if this quality control sticker is hiding a screw. Sometimes they do that. No, nothing under there. There's a couple more screws here. Just take these out. One of the interesting things about this Gearbox design, this blaster design, is that I've never seen it before. No one's ever seen it before. It's a new thing. A lot of the time when the Chinese manufacture new blasters, they borrow a design of something that's already been proven to work, and this is not one of those times. This is a brand new thing, so it's a learning experience for everyone here. Let's see if I can get this apart without gears going everywhere. That's always my goal. You can see the trigger spring there. There's the actual trigger switch. Ah, there we go. There's a little hidden screw behind the trigger switch there. Alright, so I just got that screw out from behind the trigger release off camera there. Alright, that's how you get that out. It's got a little nylock nut holding it on there. Just shoots out. Alright. I'm expecting the trigger release is going to go next. Yep, right on call. Knew that would happen. Alright, let's get this little thing, little bearing there. Get a little bearing out. Let's open this box up. It's a little bit awkward because this where this mag terminal is soldered here, it makes it kind of difficult for me to get at. Alright. Now, there's a good little gear set in there. A little nylon gear set. I don't know if you can see that. Let me can I pop this cylinder out? Oh, this is going to be a fun game. All right. So there's lots of little gears in here. I'm just going to pop the T-piece. Look at the size of that T-piece. That T-piece is so wild. Look at this. Hang on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's like about 10 gels. 9. I got 9 out. There might have been. There's a whole bunch of gels in that T-piece between where the mag connects and where the actual nozzle loads the next gel. I thought this was going to be something similar to the P1 where it's a spring-fed mag where the slide actually pushes the gel in, but it's not. It's a conventional nozzle and T situation. I wonder if I can get this somewhere where it's easier for you guys to see. It's a conventional nozzle, and here we go. I can get this cylinder out. There's the nozzle. There. Oh, it's. Oh, this is a new thing. All right, so it's a little plunger, a little O-ring. Very greasy. I'd be expecting that to pull some vacuum. And then it's got a little cylinder head with a little nozzle, which is all fairly greasy. Probably a little too greasy for my liking. I might clean this up a little bit. Actually, let's just see how much compression we get. It's not great. I think this can be improved upon. Yeah, this can definitely be improved upon. I'm going to see if I can get an O-ring here. Seal that up a bit. This cylinder here, the seal around here isn't that great from what I can feel. It's leaking. quite a bit. I think the O-ring here is okay. It seems to be leaking out the front of the cylinder, so the cylinder head O-ring. Okay, so there is a little tappet plate here, which is what moves the nozzle back and forth. This is actually a really complicated and interesting blaster and gearbox. The way it's designed is it's really interesting. So one of the reasons I find this really interesting is because it's not what I expected. I expected more similar to the P1, I guess, more similar to the gas blowback type thing, but that's not how this operates. It operates just like a AEG or like a Gen 8, but smaller. I mean, this plunger looks solid. If anything, I think there's probably going to be too much vacuum on that plunger. Definitely could do with some more seal on this cylinder head. But I'm interested in the way it's got like a little tappet plate here and a little sector gear. Little sector gear there. All the other little gear sets, it's all proprietary stuff. It's all specifically for this blaster and this blaster only. It's pretty wild. It's pretty wild. So the fact that this T-piece is so massive and that you get like 10 balls between the mag and here would explain why some people weren't getting the capacity from the mag that they were thinking they should be getting. So basically the first mag you put in this is half the mag's gonna go to filling that T-piece. You might get 4 or 5 shots off, and then you're gonna have to fill the mag again because most of the previous mag has gone to filling this T-piece up. So you're gonna have to prime that T-piece. You're gonna have to get a mag, fill it, and then refill the mag and put it in again to get the best out of it, to get the best capacity. This tappet plate's very interesting. It's amazing little setup. I'm actually pretty impressed. What I'm not impressed about is this air seal. I'm gonna have to do something about that. Alright, I'm gonna get some dimensions on this cylinder while we're here. 19.98. Very, very close to 20 millimeters internal diameter. And 39.98, very close to 40 millimeters in length. Ironically, I think a couple of days ago I was just shit talking people who use Teflon tape on cylinder heads. Guess what I'm about to do? Don't have the right O-ring for that, so Teflon tape. How the mighty have fallen. Alright, I generally don't make a habit of using Teflon tape on cylinder heads. I find it more of a band-aid solution, and I recommend getting the correct size O-ring, but desperate times, I don't have the O-ring. It's a proprietary thing that I've never seen before, so I'm going to give the Teflon tape a whirl. Alright, so I've got the Teflon tape on there. Let's see if that makes the seal Any better? No. I think it's made an improvement, but it's not perfect. I wonder now, given that this is a 20mm O-ring, I don't have an O-ring to put in here to replace this, so because I think most other O-rings are 25mm, 24 or 25. Let's see if giving it a bit of a stretch. Nah, it's leaking. It leaks from the nozzle. So I mean, it is what it is. It's not going to be super duper efficient, but see how we go with that. I'll just give this T-piece a bit of a clean out as well. Maybe worth noting the internal diameter of this T-piece. It's about 7.3, and the internal diameter of the barrel is 7.5. So let's get this back together. I just want to get you guys down in here in the gears before I put this back together so you can see what's going on here. So it has the pinion on the motor, has the bevel gear, then it has 2 spur gears, and then the sector gear. It's all proprietary gears. There is no other blaster that I've ever seen that runs these gears, so yeah, it's not going to be something easily replaced unless you use the exact gears that are designed for it. I am going to say, if you are a novice who has never pulled a gearbox apart, I would not recommend starting with this one. It's very small, very different, and even myself, I was hesitant to let any of those gears pop out just in case I couldn't get them back in again. Had a bit of a play. I mean, there's nothing much you can do in there in terms of upgrades or anything anyway, so happy to just leave them there. The trigger spring's probably going to be quite interesting to get back in. Alright, I'm going to cover this because everyone's going to be asking me, how does the trigger go back on? So, the spring sits on the trigger like that, and then that goes in to the gearbox here like this, and then you're going to have to press this spring up into the gearbox. I'll try and get this all zoomed and focused so you can see. So we've got the trigger spring there. It has to be pushed into there. I'd probably suggest like a small screwdriver or something, or pliers perhaps. I think that's correct. Okay, so that's not correct. You need to do the opposite of what I just said. The short end is forward here and the long end of the spring is backwards, towards the back of the spring there. Trigger, sorry. So the long tang of the spring pushes on the trigger barb and the short tang locks in the front here. Hopefully that makes sense. It may be worth noting that the barrel is a left-hand threaded screw-on barrel, so barrel replacement would be quite an easy thing to do. Just screw the different barrel on. Also, probably worth noting, this buffer spring probably should unscrew that before you take it apart. Like, don't do what I did. So there is an Allen head on the front here, and you can unscrew that, and there is a little nut which lives inside there. So if you unscrew that first, saves you chasing it across the room. The spring looks relatively stiff. You could probably put some packers behind there and beef it up a little bit if you did want a little bit more power from it, but given that the gears are of a proprietary nature, I probably wouldn't push it too hard until we've got replacements readily available, because who knows, if they strip, might be difficult to get your hands on a replacement. Yeah, I like the fact that it's got a replaceable O-ring plunger, not like the SKD, which had the that suction cup type plunger. I like that it's somewhat serviceable. I gotta admit, taking this down for the first time for me was, well, very daunting because I've never done it before, as it would be for anyone. But as I'm putting it together now, I'm feeling, less daunted by the aspect of having to, say, take one apart again. It seems like everything's always easier the second time, Yeah, the slide catch is interesting. I find this whole the whole situation with this thing is quite interesting, because I thought it was going to be like P1 style with the spring mag, but it's not. And then it's got this really long T, which is SKD style. It's got the really long T in the SKD, so it's this is living somewhere between the SKD and the P1. Obviously, it doesn't have that nice kick of a gas blowback, so it's not quite P1 level yet, but it does have, it's got a much more realistic slide function than the SKD. The SKD was kind of a bit of a joke in the slide department, to be honest. Magnet. How about that? Dehydrated Milky in my frame there. Obviously from factory testing. Now, to put this back in, this should slide back in. Now, the little MOSFET board kind of lives on a bit of a hinge, and I do believe that's to assist in getting it back into the frame, because if it didn't have that hinging ability, it wouldn't go back in very easily. Need to pull the trigger a bit to get it to slide back in there, and then it pops into place. Alright, pin back here. And slide. Should hopefully slide back on relatively easily. Okay, and then of course a little grub screw. Here. Alright, and then flick that switch back up, get it back into the operational position, and we should be good to go. Nice. Alright, I'm loaded up again. Let's see how many rounds I actually get before the slide locks back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, nothing. Nothing, so that would have been 12. Nothing, 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 bit of gel mush. What would that be, 11 actual shots? Some mush. Alright, my battery on my camera actually ran out just then, but I did get 15 shots out. There was a few misfires, but now I've loaded up some Ozgel Ultras. Let's see how they go. Three, 4, 5. No, not shooting. 6, 7. 8, 9, 10, 11. Seems like it does not like the Ozgel Ultras, which is the opposite for the P1, because the P1 I find only runs on the Ozgel Ultras. So this one seems like it goes best on the Armatex. Still gets the odd jam here and there, but so does the P1, I guess. So I'm really in two minds about this blaster. On one hand, I'm legitimately blown away by the technology inside here, that they've managed to squeeze so much electronics, motors, gears in this tiny package. It's, in terms of mechanism, it's superior in design to the SKD stuff. However, the SKD stuff has a more reliable feed. The spring system for the magazine is not super reliable. The motor drive that pretty much every other gel blaster uses is much more reliable. How do they get that slide lock on empty feature to work when you're not using a spring system? I don't know. Is that even possible? Maybe that's the thing. For what it's worth, the slide lock on empty it's not actually slide lock on empty. It's slide lock when the spring reaches the top, but you've still got a bunch of gels in the T-piece, which is quite a long T-piece from about here to here. It's not the first time we've seen long T-pieces like that though. The Desert Eagle has the same design, almost identical design of T-piece, although in a different configuration, and that's great. That works fine. You do have to fire the thing 10 times before you get a round, but this one has a spring which pushes the gels all the way up in there. For the price point, I kind of expected something a little bit more reliable, but it is a fun thing to play with. So I guess if you're looking at getting this, you've got to trade off what you're looking for. Are you looking for this realistic slide action, or do you want something that's going to be reliable and fire every single time you pull the trigger? Because if you want something reliable, you're probably better off looking at the SKD stuff. But if you want something that's got a more realistic slide action, then this is your option. Having said that, I am actually blown away by what they've done here and the way they've put this together. If this is the second iteration of this blaster, then I know we've got good things in the future. You can only move forward from here, but it's a start. Like, it's not perfect. Like I said, I'm in two minds. I really do like the design, but it seems that there are some feeding issues that probably need to be addressed. For what it's worth, I have found using the yellow Armortex have worked the best for me. The yellow Armortex produced the least jams out of all the gels I've used. I found the Ultras too hard. The Ultras tend to double stack up in the nozzle here, and they sit on top of each other and jam, and because they're not soft enough to just sort of squeeze through, they jam up and they just sit there. So where I always exclusively use Ultras in my P1, I probably wouldn't use them in this, because I feel that they're more likely to jam up in this feeding mechanism than other gels. The other thing is this battery cap. I've worked it out. So it's taken me a few goes, but I have worked it out. So here's what I recommend. I recommend getting the connector and the battery. If you put it in like this so that the wires are on opposing sides, connect your XT30 together, slide that down, and then you can kind of manipulate it so it kind of sits on the side there, and then put your balance connector down in there. And I found that can you see that like that? That's probably the best way to locate it that I've found. And then from there, it's actually quite easy to pop that bottom plate on and continue on. I'm sure if you do get one of these, once you practice a few times, you'll get it sussed out. So that's not an issue for me. It's tight. Battery compartments are tight. That's what you get. All in all, I think it's a fun blaster, but I probably wouldn't use it in a situation where I need reliability. And I guess that's the number one letdown. Or if I am gonna use it in a situation where I want reliability, I'd probably stick to the Armortech rounds, or something that's not too hard but not too soft, somewhere in the middle there. I found the soft ones just tended to sort of smush up in the barrel, and the ones that were too hard would just jam the feed. Either way, I am still very glad that I got this. It's a step into the future in terms of electric pistols, and if you're in a state where, well, let's face it, anywhere other than Queensland, where you can't get gas, this is a pretty cool option if you want that realistic mechanism. Anyway, I think I've talked for enough. I will let you guys all go. Don't forget to buy me a coffee and hit me up in Facebook if you want to buy a patch, and 10% off Tac Toys with the code LOGUIDO. I will put the code in the description for you. Alright, thanks for watching, guys. Peace out.